it's Jenn Hayward from the Jenn Hayward Show. Hi, Becky et al. And welcome to everyone. So tonight we have a special edition of our Lessons Learned series, which is where we take all of my life mistakes, of which there are so many, and hopefully I can help others avoid them, and picking topics and people who are experts in what we're discussing. And so soon I will bring on Anja Takera, I hope I got her last name right, and we'll be chatting. She's a digital media influencer. She's got great social media, great YouTube show, which I even have my ticker ready to go. But first, I always do a little story, something self-depreciating but empowering. And I think, hi, Randy Rain. I think, first of all, we should all just applaud me for having no makeup on. Thank you. My husband's in the background applauding. Yeah, Anja was like, are we doing makeup? I'm like, I don't even know if I own makeup anymore. Thank you, COVID. And so that's what we do. So for those who may join us and don't know who I am, I'm Jenn Hayward, aka the Jenn Hayward Show, aka the moniker of having my name on everything. And I'm also the owner of Go For It, who technically sponsors this because I should probably be doing paperwork or something. So that's what I am. I'm a comedian. I have a syndicated column I have a column in syndication with CBC Radio. And I'm silly, and I'm someone who's always in transition of redefining who I am, always developing personal growth. And so here I am. So it's a hybrid. Some people come on. I used to have a book called Jesus Loves a Crazy Horny Feminist, and they're like, where's that Jen? Well, that Jen is now the CEO of large companies. So that Jen has to tone it down a bit, but I still like to have fun. So welcome. Now, if you're watching on my personal Facebook page, then you won't be able to post comments for me to see. So if you want to interact with us, you need to jump over either to YouTube, The Jenn Hayward Show, or Facebook, The Jenn Hayward Show. Otherwise, you can make comments and converse with others, but I won't be able to see them. Maybe Josh will watch and let me know, but probably not. He's had his beer already. So welcome. So tonight we're taking a different approach. I've interviewed people and we've talked a lot about goal setting and where we need to go in life. And, making sure we have that blueprint. And I definitely took a different path than everyone else. And in 5 minutes, I'm going to walk you through my basic career choices. So, and then we're talking about the curvy road and following your path and getting to know Anja more. So I'm really experienced, as Anja and I were just saying, old. And thank you, by the way, we rescheduled this because the COVID depression hit on Friday. And I'm not ashamed to say, I was like, screw this, I'm going to sleep. But I'm here and I'm happy this evening. Well, turn the volume off, sweetie. Thank you. Okay. No, my husband's just learning how to turn the volume off on his thing. Excellent. All right. So picture it, I'm 19 and I'm in a mental institution, right? As we all were. Back then, they didn't have the same kind of mental health services they do now, which they barely do. And my whole life, I had been told I wasn't smart, different things like that. I was an athlete. It was a different world. And I had no career aspirations whatsoever. I was like, what? I didn't make the Olympics. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so definitely had my first breakdown at that age. And through love of a good man, but my husband and I met when I was 21. And through that sort of developed, hey, I'm pretty smart actually, and developed a plan after being on welfare to, that's what it was called back then, to get, to go to university. And at that time I thought, oh my God, I want to be a parole officer because I think that would be fun. I've got lots of family in jail. Why not? Right. So that's what, and I was like, oh my God, I could make $50,000 a year like back then. I went to school and things developed. I was very smart, hired on. I worked 3 or 4 jobs to get myself through university. And I did. And my husband worked many jobs as well. And we spent a lot of money, as we've never been so rich as when we were students and we didn't have all the debt we do. So then as my career developed, I was graduated from university and I was hired right into management in the government because that's who you want as your managers in government, is someone with no life experience and no experience in the field. So I skipped being a parole officer and went straight to policy. And through that, eventually moved on to the federal government. still in corrections, loved my job for a bit, but it was under, I'm not going to be political, but it was under the Harper government, who wasn't exactly known for being Indigenous friendly. I, as an Indigenous woman working with my population, it wasn't very fun for a while. And we adopted some kids and I couldn't travel. And so I had to change my job, and I ended up in a corporate job where my job was to make other people look good to their supervisors, to make them look good to their supervisors. And I said, I can't do this for 30 years. So this is, 20 years later. I left for the nonprofit world, and I'm like, I'm going to go help my people and make a big difference. And 3 years later, I was laid off from the Friendship Center because they lost their funding. And I said, screw all this. I'm going to start a courier company, because that just made sense to me. I said, what can we do that my husband, who had raised our high needs kids, who had been a cook for 17 years, so what can we use my brains and his ability to do what I say? And so then we just started our courier company, and here we are. And even as we go, I had no idea what I was doing, but I found my way, and that's just the path. And my husband and I have always said, I guess this is what we're doing now. And that was our theme for the longest time, is that we didn't start this path with a big strategic plan. We did it to hustle, because I was taking phone calls at work from social workers, police officers, CIS workers, you name it, we had it. Adopting high needs kids definitely came with what we knew was coming, but it was even more. And so that's how we ended up as, owners of a courier company in a pandemic, that we ended up positioning ourselves to help a lot of people. And so in the end, why I went into the government, why I went into the field I did, was to help others. And I found a way to do it through logistics. But I tell you, I'm not as exciting as I used to be. I used to be, comedian, I'd be on, I'd do lots of things. And now, like, you can invite me to a dinner party and I am going to talk about postal codes. I am going to talk about why is there one block downtown that's K1P, it's one block and everything around it is K2. It doesn't make sense. And that's why no one invites me. Oh, no, people do. So that's a little bit about me, and that's my path. That's a very long, but there's this idea that you have to have a strategy for everything. And I think you could have had 8 backup strategies. That's still not, that wouldn't have helped anyone during COVID. Sometimes you have to look at what the universe is throwing at you, use what you can, do what you need to do. You need to hustle. And sometimes it's not about that perfect strategy. And I have a theory that I want to talk to Anja about later, and I'll just state it now so people can hate me now and go later. I was on a podcast with Jason Petrianak, and he was talking, and everyone was talking about during COVID, and how, this might have actually brought people together more. And I said, no, this is alienating, or he thought it was alienating people. And I said, well, it's actually bringing people together in a weird way, because the richer are getting way richer through this, and the poor are getting way poor. And that middle class is going down, because what we're seeing right now is just a whack of people who have never had extreme hardship in their life. They haven't had a lot of diversity. They haven't had a lot of obstacles. There's nothing wrong with that. We've had these people who've had their life planned out, and then COVID happened and mass obstacles happened to them. And some of them don't know how to do it. And they're like, freedom, my freedom is so important. And it is. But anyone who's worked with anyone in a marginalized community is like, duh, the government's been trying to control everyone for years. And now you're concerned? Like, you're concerned about wearing a mask when we have people up north who don't have clean drinking water, right? And so as I feel the COVID could have actually brought us closer together, and people hopefully would use that information to help others. I don't believe everyone is, but maybe it is. So we'll talk. So that's a few of the things I'd like to cover with our guests. So I'm going to bring Anja on. And if you have questions, again, you need to be on YouTube, or you need to be on the Jenn Hayward Show Facebook business page, not the Jenn Hayward I'm a Person page. And welcome to Miss Anja. How are you?
Hi, good evening, Jen. How are you?
Good. You have such good lighting. Oh my goodness.
That's my YouTuber lighting.
You're a digital media specialist.
This is what I do. I have to be lit well. That's important, because I go on air a lot without makeup. We were talking about the no makeup. Better than makeup. Good lighting is better than makeup.
I'm going to learn all of these things. I'm 46. I'm like that old lady who puts that, I'm not going to lie to you. This was a hairpiece. I did it. There you go. No, I'm really exposed.
I love fake hair. This is my real hair. I came au natural for you.
Awesome. So I'm doing it for you. Well, not fully all natural. I mean, people got to pay for that stuff. So, thank you, Becky. I can even do this. Look, this is something that's really cool. Becky Doll.
Yes.
Look at me learning how to use
I love it. Hey, Becky. Okay, everybody that's watching, say hi in the comments or drop a fire emoji, warm up the chat.
There you go. Warm up the chat. I'm going to steal that one. That's okay. So they have to go to the Jenn Hayward show. There you go. I love that. I love that. So that's what you do. So I love that part about you, because your generation knows a lot more about this stuff than we do. And my husband is old. He's I don't even know how old we are. We just had birthdays, and he's like, wait, 49,
32. Right?
Yeah, I was going to tell you I was 46. No, I'm 47, I think. Yeah. But no, I'm 46. No, I'm 46. I'm absolutely 46. Wait, hang on. So this is important, Anja. Yes, I am. I'm 46. Because you're 3 years older than me. Are you doing math? He's got his calculator out. That's how old we are. I'm 46. Anyway, he's 49. He's 3 years older than me, and my math was off. And he's just learning. And he just learned about YouTube, basically, that he can drink beer on camera and people will subscribe and watch that.
Yes, you can do anything.
Math has confirmed that I'm 46. That's great. So with our difference, so I love that this is a way to connect. And frankly, right now, this is the only way we can connect with people. Yeah. And so it's important what you're doing. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got started? Was it you woke up one day and you wrote a strategic plan to become a content creator influencer? Obviously, that's what you did.
No, not at all. So I think it started, I was 13 years old, and the kids at school were talking about, I was 12, this thing called Facebook. And on Facebook, you could post pictures of you and your friends. You could stalk your crush and send them messages, and you could meet and talk to kids from other schools. And I was like, this Facebook thing sounds really neat. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask my mom if I can get a Facebook. And she was like, you cannot have a Facebook until you are 13 years old.
Smart. Because you know what, Facebook turned us all into 13-year-olds. So.
And I made sure the night before my 13th birthday, I made my little Facebook account so that on the day of my birthday, I could get messages from all my friends from school and camp and dance saying, happy birthday, Anja. And that was just the coolest thing to me, that I could connect with all of these people at the same time. And it was like addiction born.
Margot Lacorte she just put a sad emoji from that story. That was confusing. Your childhood makes her sad. That's all right. You gotta do. I was just curious, but
my generation, my age group, I was born in 94. So we have this incredible nostalgia that fuels my generation. Hollywood and companies make a lot of money off of my age group because we have this desire to reach out to others and this incredible nostalgia. That's why you see movies that were popular when we were kids being remade again. So Jurassic Park is back. Addams Family is coming back. Pokemon is back. All of these things that were popular when I was a kid are coming back again because our generation is very nostalgic. And I have a theory about this. And I think it comes from this dramatic loss of innocence that happened across the board for my entire age group. And it started with 9/11.
Okay.
So I remember exactly, and I'm sure all of the millennials in the chat remember exactly where they were when that happened. And that was I was so young. I think I was in primary school at Terry Fox Public School. And I was so young, I couldn't comprehend what happened. I know that something very terrible had happened and the teachers were crying, and I got sent home from school. And I remember standing there in front of the TV watching the Twin Towers crash into these buildings and thinking, Daddy, I asked my dad, Daddy, is that real or is that a movie? And he said, I'm sorry, baby, that's real. And I said, why would somebody do that? And he said, some people want to hurt other people. And so there was this across the board dramatic loss of innocence where my entire age group was exposed at a very young age to the incomprehensible evils of this world. And that some people are not redeemable. And that life is not predictable. Because no matter what you do, you could go to work and a plane could crash into the building. Life is short. And I learned that when I was 7 years old. And then things progressed after that. You go to school, you get a good job. That's what your parents say to do. And then in 2008, when you're in 7th grade, trying to study, your parents lose their job.
Mm-hmm.
They did everything right. They did everything you're supposed to do. You go to school, you get good grades, you go to university, you get a good job, you work hard every single day. And then the company collapses. But at the same time that's happening in 2008, this plucky college dropout named Mark Zuckerberg, who didn't do all the things he was supposed to do, has this wild idea to make Facebook.
Okay.
So at the same time, I'm realizing that, the path that's promised does not really exist. It's not really promised. At the same time, I'm seeing these crazy inventors and innovators coming out through social media. And I was drawn to the idea that you could present yourself to the world and your ideas and reach people from all over the world. And of course, social media is not guaranteed. I mean, this week, pat on the back for myself, just got monetized on YouTube. So I'm a YouTube partner. But most people with a YouTube account never become a YouTube partner. Mm-hmm. But you can take that sort of leap when you know that, yeah, most people never become a YouTube partner, but just because I go to school, work hard, and get good grades, that doesn't mean I'm going to get a good job. So if nothing is promised, you might as well pursue whatever you're interested in with a full heart, full intentions, and just see where it lays out for you. And now I'm 26 years old and we're in a recession again, but we're pivoting. And that's important.
Well, and I think what you're doing, like the voices, because with all of this technology, so too has the ability to trickery and all those, oh, that's me. If you even think about the Bernie thing that happened this week, I was like, when did all these grandmas learn to Photoshop? Like, technology has changed. Before, Photoshopping was very advanced stuff.
Yeah.
And now Canva and different things, it's like, oh, you can remove this and you could actually make quite, but then you have to filter things through. So we had, when the Twin Towers happened, we were at a completely different age. We're about I'm 20 years older than you now that you told me you're 26, right? And so I was the director at the University of Regina Women's Center. So, diehard feminist, doing all the things I need to do. And my husband was, a student too. And we just hung out. Sometimes we made out in the Women's Center, whatever. And we were just like 1 or 2 years, married at that time. So we still enjoyed that. But we still do. What am I saying? But I remember we were not that innocent person you were, right? At 20 years older, we both looked at each other and we said, I guess George's daddy gets his war now, because we had lived through the George Bush before the George W, which everything happened during that. Like the Cold War ended, the wall came down, and then Cobain died, and that was all like suicide. And that was, but even in those two worlds, my husband and I both grew up in different worlds, me from being indigenous, maybe poor, him from, but also just like we've said, if we had met in high school, no way would we have dated. I was like really nerd and he was like stoner or whatever he still is, but hey, no, that's brought me over to his side. But we were, I was not told anything except for be an athlete. But his grandparents didn't understand why he couldn't just graduate and go get a job at a construction site. And so that's when that started, right? Was when everything sort of, the world wasn't as controlled at that time. And now it seems like everyone's talking about sort of like very big conspiracies about the Great Reset. And even talking about that, people start talking about the conspiracies around 9/11. And that wasn't a lot of conversations that I had, at age 26. I was talking about, women's studies, and some of the things that we now just take for granted were things like intersectionism, and feminism wasn't something anyone talked about. Or we were just starting to talk about it because people were like, hey, what about I was at the World Women's March in the year 2000. And I remember that there was 93 items that they put forward to Jean Chrétien at the time to say, here's our issue. And not one of them addressed lesbians. And like, that was like in the year 2000, like not one of them addressed lesbians, and lesbians were like, hey, and all the, middle-class white women were like, yeah, but, right. And so that's what I grew up in. And so I forged my own, but there's a lot of people who had a lot of things given to them in my generation. I certainly wasn't one of them. And I don't see that as much, I think, with your generation. So I think forming your own, but if everyone went and formed what they're interested in, who's going to do all the other work that needs to get done?
Right.
Is the question.
Right. And so I think that my generation learned at a very young age that life is not fair.
Yeah.
And so we already had that mindset. So now that that's why I'm sure you've read the articles. Millennials are jaded. Millennials are ruining everything. Millennials are entitled.
Well, that was our thing. It was Gen X's thing. That was our thing.
But I actually have a younger sister, and she is, I guess I call them the TikTokers.
Okay.
You might hear Generation Z or Zoomers. And
today is what I call them.
Yeah. So the gap of only the 9 years between myself and my younger sister there's so much that's different, because I remember going to Blockbuster and renting a tape, pooling my money together with my friends, renting a tape, and then having to rewind it before we returned it to Blockbuster. And when I told that to my little sister, she thought I made it up.
Okay, yeah.
Because she's never lived in a world without smartphones.
That's what we did.
Never lived in a world
when they were younger. Yeah.
I gave her a project because my little sister lost her job during the first wave of the pandemic. She's a gymnastics teacher. And so I gave her little jobs to do. So I said, I want you to go and collect a bunch of photos of me as a child, and I will pay you for the photos that you find.
Okay.
And she texted me back and she says, wow, turns out Facebook didn't exist before 2013. There's no baby photos of you on Facebook. Because in her world, you keep all the baby photos on Facebook. And I was like, my photos are paper. You're going to have to go in the cabinet under the stairs and in the garage and physically find them. But for her, the shift, so much has changed so quickly that we grew up in completely different realities. And so wherever millennials are having an understanding that life isn't fair, the younger generation that's coming up, the Zoomers, TikTokers, I like to call them the TikTokers.
Yeah.
That age group is extremely active and they're determined. I mean, young people are always determined, but they have a tool that didn't exist for previous generations, and that they can connect with people all over the world. And that builds empathy. Because instead of growing up in little bubbles where everybody around you is the same skin color as you, and their parents make roughly the same amount of money as you, and you go to the same church and you drive the same kind of cars, you can connect now with social media with somebody who has a completely entirely different reality than you with the snap of your fingers. And so that helps people build empathy for people that come from different places. I can go and talk to people that live in rural Ukraine right now and see what their life is like. So that encourages empathy and gets people to out of their little worlds and thinking about the world on a greater scale and humanity on a greater scale. So I think that millennials and the TikTokers are driven by different motivations than previous generations. It's not just about, no offense, collecting things and status and that and whatever. There's a great desire to have some sort of impact on the world as a whole. And I think that my desire for social media comes from not having a lot of representation in media of people that look like me when I was growing up. Okay. It just did not exist. I was already a teenager by the time Disney had a Black princess. So for me, being able to create images that I would have liked to see growing up, or even that I would like to see now, is very powerful to me. I post nonsense, basically most of the time. My show Pajama Party, nonsense. My YouTube channel, nonsense. But it's very important for marginalized people, queer people, women of color, Black women, to see themselves portrayed in something that is not high stakes. When I turn on the TV, I don't want to just see Black people being killed by police all day. I want to also see Black people struggling to dye their hair, just regular everyday things. And I think that that's important for other people to see as well, because people who live in towns where there are no Black people, if the only images that they see are the images on the media, on mainstream media, that is, it's not a good look.
Well, I'm from Saskatchewan, so, my exposure was exceptionally limited. I mean, basically, you're either Ukrainian or you're Indigenous, and that's it. No joke, I was probably in university before I'd ever come across, because, Indigenous and my own people, sure, everywhere. But I always said, because it's cold and they're smart. But realistically, and then we did a study in women's studies for my first year. And we asked the question, why is there a low population of anyone of color, really, in Saskatchewan? And of course, there was a dark and dirty history, and there was an actual campaign where people went to Oklahoma and said, no, don't come here, while there was a campaign across Europe saying, hey, what a great place to settle. And I was like, geez, it started even back then. Also, it's cold. I mean, generational things aside, so what are you doing? So you have your digital, I put it down below. True.
Yeah, there's my website. It's kind of my home base. You can find everything that I'm doing there. Yep. So I basically do anything that I'm interested in. That's kind of my strategy in life, is that something that I'm interested in, and if I can find a way to do it, I give it a try. So during the pandemic, I released some music because I was always interested in that. And I just messaged people and I was like, I'm interested in making some music. What do you think? And eventually I found someone that was like, yeah, sure, I'll help you with this. And so now I've got music that's distributed on Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, just generally anywhere you would listen to your streaming music. I've got a single up there called E-Girl. And I wrote that during the quarantine because I was exceptionally bored and I needed something to cheer me up. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that is a good enough reason to do something. And I started on YouTube actually when I was a child. I'm not going to tell you the name of the channel because
well, I'm going to get
it. A bunch of us kids, sure. And we lived in different places. And this is like coming into, just something that's different that couldn't have been done before. So we were a bunch of kids the same age, and we lived in different places. We had kids in the States, we had kids in Europe, and each of us would upload a video about whatever topic for the week and discuss it. So I got to, talk to kids in Scotland and all over the place. And it was really cool. And I loved doing that. But I stopped that when I moved to university, and my parents said, you can't take the video camera with you.
Oh, no. Well, what did they want it for? Wait a minute.
They've never touched it.
Oh, okay. No jokes about your hair down.
Not only did they not use it, it's now completely obsolete. But so
Well,
they might as well
when
have
on
let
my
me take it.
honeymoon, we had a camera and it had 2.2 megapixels. It was fresh off the market. We paid $600 for it. So yeah, now technology changed really
It
quickly.
changed so fast. They might as well have let me take that camera because now my phone films better videos than that camera did. But I've always kind of been interested in posterity, just capturing moments, because I think it's that nostalgia that is very much in me. I like to look back and reflect on moments. So when it was disposable cameras, I always had one of those, taking pictures of me and my friends. I had one of those ones that printed out, the Polaroids that print out right away, and I would have that at recess, taking pictures of my friends and I, playing ball. And so eventually that had me on YouTube, and then I stopped YouTube when I went to university. But there's always been that pull to create content and document. I've always been interested in that. So now I've got my YouTube channel back up and running as of June last year. And I started off with my show, Pajama Party, which is a live stream show, which is completely nonsensical. It's just, I turn on the camera and I'm there and we talk about anything except for serious topics. So it was designed to be a soft and safe place to come where you could have a distraction and a laugh. So we would do anything. We'd play games.
It's so important. It's so
run
important.
tournaments, like what's your favorite cereal? It was just lighthearted fun. And that was a really great experience because I always wanted to do something like that. And I'm happy I got a chance to do it. Now I'm doing more published videos on YouTube. But yeah, I'm doing a bunch of things. I'm also in school for home renovation because that's something else that I'm interested in. So right now I'm in this place where I'm 26 and very aware that my whole life is ahead of me. And as I was talking about before, with the things that I've learned, it doesn't make sense for me to pick one thing and continue on that path straight down, because that's not how life works. Because I got really good at doing events. I started doing events when I was in middle school. I was doing fashion shows. I was doing fundraisers, school dances.
Yeah, you're a natural born leader.
The principal allowed it, gave me the budget. I was making it happen. I was always trying to do events. And so I started doing events actually professionally. And so I was working my way up to the bigger events. And I was supposed to do my biggest event ever during last summer. And I was starting to call around to vendors, trying to book gowns, do that whole thing.
Yeah.
And coronavirus comes along, and that's not a thing. When I said, well, okay, what else am I interested in? And then started there. So when I started YouTube, that was going, and then I came across the home renovation program I'm in school for. And I was like, I can do this. This is cool. I'm interested in this. I want to do this. And I told my friends, yeah, I'm going for this. And they said, well, are you not doing YouTube anymore? I said, I don't have to stop doing something. And even if I do stop doing something, even if I put YouTube on a shelf for a few months to pursue something else, that doesn't mean I don't do that anymore. It just means that my energy is going somewhere else. So that when the game pieces on the chessboard start to shift again, I can reevaluate and say, okay, where am I now? What tools do I have? What skills do I have? And what opportunities are in front of me to pursue? I don't want to get tunnel vision and only chase after one thing, because I've seen in my short life that does not necessarily work.
I find that really interesting. By the way, everyone who's watching, share it and tell people to go to the Jenn Hayward show, though, not to my page, because that does no good. I can see lots of people commenting on my page. Tough luck, I can't see you. I told you that, so go over. If you want me to see your comment, go over. I'm not a nice host. I'm go. But I go because I know people just like to see it from there. But I'm not even stoned. Last time I accidentally took an edible.
Right.
I did it.
This is my signature drink right here. I'm waiting for my sponsorship.
Awesome.
I love these things.
I could, but I have been told divorce or stop drinking a little bit. But it's as I'm hearing that, because I've been told, like, even recently, I was introduced on someone else's podcast as a former comedian. I was like, whoa, whoa,
Wow.
whoa. And then I was like, well, yeah, I don't really do it. I mean, even before COVID, because I work, 100 hours a week, but I still do my column. But that doesn't mean, and I thought, God, maybe I am. And then I can't say what, but I was approached, and I will be doing a taping when COVID is done. I'm like, yeah, I'm still a comedian. I better start polishing something, because I haven't been on stage in a while. But I'm not the same kind of comedian that I was. So even if you park something for a bit, and as I've aged, so I followed my own path. And when people are like, I laugh, because I'm getting along with middle class to rich, like, entrepreneurs. I get off the phone with, like, people whose businesses make 8 figures, and I'm like, yeah, we're awesome. And that is a huge change from the socialist that I was. And I found during CERB, when the path, hey, Randy, right? When the path sort of converged, and I was like, okay, we're going to use this for good, not evil. We're going to help people. I'm going to make a profit. So all the people that I'm supporting now, I'm a good capitalist that way, or I'm a bad capitalist, a decent socialist. I'm not good at either. I want that middle ground, right? I want to pay my people well, but I also want to go visit Kenya and see my elephants, right? Like, so I've got this world. But when the crash happened, right, and when COVID happened, we had like triple the work, and we had half the people say, kiss my ass, I'm not putting my life on the line to bring someone some cupcakes. And I couldn't argue with them, right? I'm like, all right, go take CERB. Like, what are you going to do? And then we had some people who would not. And so all of these things have developed to who I am. And so I got to see, business owners and people I thought had everything all together have nothing together. And I've seen people who have been able to pivot. So on Friday, Carla Briones is going to be on. I don't know if you know her, but she's literally the best. She works, she owns Global Pet Foods and Freshie. And she's also, she works with immigrant entrepreneurs to help newcomers to Canada have their own business. And she does all these things. And she, I hate the word pivot because it's overused right now, but realistically,
but it's important right now. This is the pivot moment.
Yeah. And so a lot of people right now, like, if you're in the event industry, if you're selling inflatable balloons, if there are some places that may not bounce back anytime soon. And there are people I've seen who have been able to adjust. And I love what you said. What am I interested in? Or another question could be, what do I have around me? Like, if there's no jobs that you can do and you're used to being an entrepreneur and you need to support your family, that's how we started a logistics company, right? It was just he and I in a truck. And now all of a sudden we're like, I guess we'll do, like, we're signing ridiculous things right now where I'm like, yeah, I guess we'll do that. And it's only because I have a great team. Like, right now, it's well above my pay grade as CEO to some of the logistical work that we're doing. I'm like, I have people who have like black belt sigmas who are doing my work, and I'll be like, yes, I feel that's a good idea. But then they, and I feel like sometimes insecure around my own staff, because this is the path, and I'm a leader, but I'm me, right? And that's right. The one thing that's never changed. So with the path, I am me. So I'll have people say, and I've had it my whole life, oh, you're not this, you're not that enough, whether it's, cultural, whether it's in my job, you're not a feminist enough, you're not socialist enough, you're not capitalist enough. But I think if you're authentically you, and I think that's where social media, I have as many people who dislike me as who love me. But the people who love me are, oh my God, right? But there's people who dislike me, and they're fully right to dislike me, because I haven't always been who I am now. I've made errors along the way. And the thing with social media is now every error that we've made since its inception is captured in someone's heart, right? So I know if I ever ran for something, if I was like going to be a politician, by the way, I'd be a kick-ass politician. I know someone's going to be I've been doxxed. I didn't even know what doxing was. And I was doxxed. I was like, hey, some guy did this to me and put my family on an incel group and said, get him, basically. And someone's like, yeah, you were doxxed. And I'm like, let me Google that. Like, that's how out of it I am. So that's where my path converges. And so you're at the beginning. I feel I'm not at the end, but I'm at the end of this part of my path, right? I have an exit strategy now. I do. I'm hoping the exit strategy is not bankruptcy, but I have sometimes I put a little bit of strategy into things because I'm here. And I said, it's not worth giving up. But is this what I want to do long term? No, but I want to do other things. So do you have a longer term goal, dream, strategy, anything like that? Or is it you're just like, I'm going to see how this all goes?
I jokingly say world domination.
So
But honestly, I think long term, there's several things that I'm interested in, and I like to see how they can converge. I'm obviously very interested in content creation, and I think that I'm good at it. I mean, I like editing videos, but I just like creating things. And I think that my mission on Earth, not to get all woo-woo, but I'm going to get a little woo-woo. I think that my mission on Earth is to help other people see what is possible in life. And so no matter what I'm doing,
you're going to go on the speaking circuit. You are absolutely going to be on the speaking circuit. There you go.
I think I'm going to be presenting. I think I'm going to be creating opportunities for other people. I think I'm going to be helping other people expand their minds. And these are all generic things because
my dog says hello, by the way.
Hello, woof woof. I don't need to be narrowly tied to one specific quantifiable goal. Of course, I like short-term quantifiable goals. So that's finish school and home renovation. Get really good at home renovation. Then renovate some houses. Like these are like concrete short-term goals. But it doesn't matter.
On home renovation?
Pardon?
Content on home renovation? Is that?
Yeah, I'll do that too, probably.
But it's pretty logical.
Yes. I do jokingly ask my friends, what's my show going to be called? At some point when I'm ready, I'll know when the time is right. I'll send out the tapes. HGTV, okay. I'm coming. But right now, I kind of have a broader mission, which is to help other people see what is possible. Because I have a very different background. When I grew up, I did not have a lot. And I'm determined to finish in a way that is legendary. And so I want to use my story to help other people see it doesn't have to be the way you were told it was. You don't have to be who people tell you you are. And for me, I know that that's my mission at the end. I got to get super successful so I can turn around and tell other people you can do it too. And so I use that as my guiding star. So when I have opportunities that are laid out in front of me, or maybe a door closes and I've got all these other doors in front of me, I use it as my guiding star. Which of these opportunities, which of these paths is going to get me closer to where I eventually want to be? Even if that's not, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be this super amazing events planner. I'm going to take over the events scene in Ottawa. I'm really good at this. I'm going to make all the connections. And then COVID-19 hits.
Yeah.
You say, what else am I good at? What else can I inspire people through?
You didn't stop. And I like that, and I think that's where a lot of people have been stunted. And I go back to people have not faced adversity. Some of them did not know what to do and still don't know what to do. They're like, when is this going to be done? So I can go back to doing exactly what I did before. And some people looked at it, like you, what else am I good at? I really like that. What else do I have? What else can I contribute?
Yeah, what else is out there? What else am I interested in? And keeping that what else and adding on type of moving forward, because I don't want to be the pessimist, but I don't see things going back to exactly how they were. It's just not possible because we as people are changed from this experience. Yeah. And for me, I have faced some pretty intense adversity in my life. Like I told you the story about 9/11, but that's a general story that happened to everybody. In my personal life, I've come up against a lot of obstacles, but I can't let an obstacle hold me because at the end of the day, I have one shot, not to Hamilton it, but I'm not going to throw away my shot. I've got one shot. So are you going to let an obstacle be in front of you and say, well, I was supposed to do this and now that's ruined and I'm just going to sit here and be sad about it? I would be sad about it for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then start thinking about what else. I don't think there's anybody on earth that's only good at one thing. I think that all of us have multiple interests and can find a way to do something else with ourselves until maybe plan A comes back around or maybe plan C comes around.
Well, and it never ends. There are people who will stay in the same field forever and do the same thing, and that's okay. And some people who progress, and some people who see. I just did a mind trust with the youth of today. I was a leader, and I was like, oh boy, do they know who they're getting? And I was talking to two young guys, and I mean young, right? Just out of university or just ending university. And one guy had his entire life like planned out. And I just said, what happens if you don't get it? Like, I didn't even want to like put any sort of like negative doubt, but also, like, hey, young white guy, this may not be your time to shine. Like, I don't know what to tell you, is that, the world is different. There's going to be opportunities for everyone, but we have to make space for people who haven't had space, and we have to let people claim their space and take the voices. Because I like what you said, because I think I've learned so much just on Facebook. Like I keep I don't have diversity in terms of overthought, meaning I can't have too many racist or things, and I found as I've gotten into the business community, I've had to like, block that guy, how did that get on my feed, right? Like, you have to at least Google me to know who I am. I'm an entrepreneur, but I have a history. And seeing things. So like example, like trans rights is something that was never discussed when I was younger. And now it's so inherently there. And I find myself continually learning. And like my daughter who's pansexual, and proud of it, that she wears a sweatshirt about it. And she'll tell me whenever I'm wrong about anything. Like, she is absolutely like, Mom, that's not how it's done, right? Or that's not, you can't say that. And I'm learning, and I learned from Facebook, and I find it's good when you have respectful dialogue. It just, sometimes you can't have that. And I want to ask you about this, because I think it really affects people's path as well. I should have told you we're going to talk about this, but this is how I like to do this, is very organically and just chat.
I'm here for it.
Is call out culture. Not cancel culture, but call out culture, because I see two different. I see there is a need and a time for cancel culture 100%. Like I see it, but call out culture, I have actually been on both ends. I've absolutely called out shit. Like those two rich people up in the Yukon taking indigenous vaccines. Are you kidding me? I hope they get so much jail time, right? But I've also been in a situation where I was called out for being racist when I wasn't racist, but I had to do a lot of reflecting, because I'd never been ever challenged like that. And it was just someone who was let go for completely legitimate reasons. And even they had said, but it just went a little viral. And the way I dealt with it was, I just didn't deal with it, because I said, that person's reality is how they feel. And I'm not going to go up against everyone to say, I just said, I'm going to reflect. And at the end of the day, I felt fine, but it made me look, again, that whole socialist to capitalist, that middle class to, from welfare to here, is that, what do I believe on all these things? And I said, at the end of the day, my reputation stands on itself. So I'm not going to ever have to fight that, because in this case, it's a one instance that could have been taken a lot of different ways, but I have an entire history of good things and learning. And also, I admit when I fuck up readily. Like I wake up and I'm proud of it, but it made me think a bit more about call out culture. So I wanted to give that context of why I'm asking, because you and I both witnessed a huge call out of a whole bunch of women, and right. And so you have to talk about that. But in general,
have to name names, but we both know who we're talking about.
We do. And I say you dealt with things in a different way than other people did, because people deal with call out culture in different ways, I guess, if that makes sense. So if you can give me your take, I'm very interested in it.
Right. So I've got the liaison with, understanding people before social media, and then my younger sister who's a TikToker, and they're like pulling no punches. My sister will sit there without looking up from her phone and being like, that was racist, transphobic, like without a beat.
Without any context. Yeah, exactly.
So
you know how hard that's made comedy? Oh my God. It's like, no, you need to hear the punchline, or you need to stand up. It's actually being anti.
People are already offended before you get to the end of the joke.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think there's degrees. There's, of course, cancel culture, which is like, you're straight up canceled which I sometimes I don't like to do. I mean, there's hard lines that I will draw personally, but if you cancel everybody, this is what happens. Their world and social media, once you start canceling, it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks.
And all the races just hang out
and
together.
then suddenly their only account is Stormfront, 4chan, incel Reddit, and they don't get to see anything else, and they're indoctrinated into this crazy worldview. So you don't want to cancel everybody because people need to be exposed to other viewpoints. Now, there's some people where you try to educate them, and then you get to the point where you're like, okay, by now you get it. You just don't want to get it. And then that point is like, and then there's call out culture where you call someone out. And that's like, I'm calling out this behavior because, and then there's call in culture. And I'm a big fan of call in culture, but I don't want to always do the work because I'm already a woman of color and I'm tired. Okay. So call in culture is somewhere where allies can get involved. So I'll have, a post or something that will start to go left. Someone will say something completely out of pocket that was unnecessary to say.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of canceling that person immediately, because that's not going to teach them anything, instead of calling out that person, I mean, I might call them out because I'll be like, I don't have the patience today and I'm going to drag you because I like to fight people on the internet. I'll go out and say that.
See, I hate
but
it.
I'll have friends who I will say, somebody call this person in. And so another person who is an ally can come in and say, hey, I used to have that thought and I could see where you're coming from, but let me explain it to you a little bit better. Maybe you can see it from a different point of view. So calling in is a little bit more gentle. Some people need to be called out, like if you're, taking vaccines from oppressed minorities, you need to be called out. But if someone says something that you can tell they're just parroting something else and they haven't really thought about it, that's the time to call them in, gently challenge their thoughts, offer maybe some links to outside information, offer a different perspective, and that's a call in. That's the gentlest thing. And I think
I've never heard that. That's an opportunity for learning. And that's how I've always, unless it's really overt. But I find like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of stuff that and I would say that I was decently woke, and then, I had to Google woke again, but still, I believe, because I've been in this field my whole life, and I was like dismissed with a blink by a millennial once who said, oh, you're just a second wave feminist. I was like, no, I'm not. I said, but there's more.
That might have been a TikToker.
There's some context behind the movement, like when I'm very well versed in the history of the feminist movement, and I know how exclusive it was. And I still think back and I said, I don't know if they would have got any progress done if they didn't do it the way they did. And I like to look at things through, the whole perception.
Yeah.
You see what's behind your eyes and then helping. And I remember I was talking about Bob. He was someone we did these 3-day Indigenous perceptions. And Bob, when we came to Supreme Court cases, he was the most annoying person I've ever met in my life, who was like, yeah, but what about fairness? Because what had happened was all of the Supreme Court cases were being heard around the same, progressively challenging the Indian Act against provincial statutes. And we always came out, and that's how the law has been defined for Indigenous people with their special relationship with the Crown. And he's like, but it's still not fair. And it came down to the not fair, not fair, not fair. And it was so annoying because he could only look at the world that way. But the next day we did a very intensive interactive exercise with him on residential schools. And he got so into it. I had to come in as an Indian agent, and he was ready to fight me. He was so like, this isn't fair. Why would you interrupt our family? You're going to take these kids away. And then it's just like, he got it, right?
It clicked.
Now, we can't train people for 3 days, but we can get that call in. Seems like it's a gentle lead into people being interested, right?
Yeah. And I think also just having social media, I've encountered people where they said, I just don't get the transgender thing. It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not trans, so I'm not the one to explain. But I also don't want my trans friends wasting their time or energy justifying their existence all the time. So that's the point where I, as an ally, can come in and call someone in if they're saying something like, I just don't get the transgender thing. Me, I'll say, well, I'm not trans, so I'll never really fully understand. But my trans friends have told me this. Or maybe you want to watch this YouTube video that's made by a trans person about their experience. And then maybe you can see it sort of from a different point of view.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to talk to you about this further. So instead of just going, well, you're transphobic, get off the internet, you're canceled. Because everybody's got a different experience.
Yeah.
And now with the internet, yes, we have all of this access to information, but some people's world is just so closed in that they don't even know what to Google. So sometimes I will say, Google this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's some words like that. I guess that's where I was going with all that, like even me, and as I've learned and but I'm learning things every day about, just general sayings, words that we've used that, that had a racial connotation, or someone like would post a meme with a whole bunch of things like the genesis of words. And I was like, shit, like I didn't know these things. Right. And then I've known forever and a day about the rule of thumb and why it's bad. Right. I've known that. And I still use the damn saying. I try so hard.
It's cultural. It's ingrained.
It's because it's all
part
there.
of our lexicon.
And it was only until, so, I mean, as I've grown and when I had the chance in 2017 to be with, and this is where my world changed, was when I met 22 women. We spent 7 weeks with women from all over the world. And it was a global change leaders program. And I was Canada's representative. And so my roommate was a nun from Zambia. And I was like, I'm a stand-up comic. And I gave her my book, Jesus Loves a Crazy Horny Feminist. And she read it. And then she goes, oh, you're so refreshing, Jenny. She says, you're so refreshing. A week of living with me, she goes, your husband is a saint. But to my day, meeting all these women and seeing from their point of view, and I mean, I won't say it because I made this into a joke once and it didn't go well, but it's just about the different, so we're talking in depthly about, intersectionalism and trans and all those sorts of things. And some of them are so behind in human rights in their countries that it reminds me of the suffrage movement, and where women, and it's they can only think about the one thing because they're trying to get out of their life situation. And so learning so much. So when we were in Kenya, my husband and I went to visit my friend and like I said, my elephants, but I don't own them or anything, but they know me. And so I loved it. But the best part of what we did was, and this was where I feel like my path is going to still take me back to this, is to the social enterprise of the women of Busia County. So there is basically, we invested in a social enterprise program where it's a micro lending program, and we just donated a little bit of money. We didn't want it back, but the woman who runs the program, it just makes so much sense. But when we sat down and we met with the women, and one guy was there too, but with the women, and it was such a surreal moment because, when we're sitting around with networking with our group of women, and you and I talking here, and they're having the same kind of conversations, but just on such a micro level. And even my husband, who's not business oriented, was like, well, why don't one of you not sell tomatoes and sell something else? And then we got to the bottom of why some of these things, because everyone's in survival mode where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel my road is taking me down back there, because it's not that I feel that I can be some sort of savior or anything like that. But through my 46, not 7 years of experience, I think I've learned to listen to the needs of where people are, and to say, but I'm very good at, so you could tell me, that's where you're saying, okay, I can see, oh, Anja has, these 5 skills, these 5 interests, boom, I could make you a career path if you want. I don't know if it'll stick. I don't know if it's even what you want, but I can see gaps and holes. And that's what actually made me good at logistics. It was never my plan, but I have logic and sense and good feeling, good intentions, authenticity. And anyway, And so when we were there, that's why we were just like, well, I don't know, why don't you all share a truck, and like a little bit of money together to invest in a truck that to do that instead of 5 of you renting a truck to do your own one thing, right?
Right.
Of course, I'm like, am I starting a courier business in Kenya? No, I couldn't drive one of the tuk-tuks. They're very bad and scary. But my point is, so that's where my path, it ended up, my heart ended up doing exactly where I wanted to help
Mm-hmm.
with, but I took my life experience as I had it. So that's where I think there can't be the 20-year plan, because your interest, your everything is going to change. I love hearing that. I'm just gonna do a record now, right? Like I tried painting once and I was awful at it. When it comes to art, I'm really good at like writing and comedy, and that's it. And even then, I'm attention deficit. So I'm like, okay, the joke is done. I'm not known for polishing stuff. But I'm Howard from Yuck Yucks would always say, the owner of Yuck Yucks, you're more charming than you are funny, Jen. And it's a little bit of an insult, but it's true. I can say things in a way, and I put my personality into it, that I bet if I had spent a few hours, tightening up a word here or there, it would have had a different result. And so that's all to say is that where call out culture is that I think we have the opportunity where you are in your life, and I like that call in, I really do, to my generation who kind of needs it. I know Erica, I feel, is doing her mastermind series. I find her very, like, she's great, but she'll hit you over the head with it, right? And that's where, like, even feminism, some people are like that, like, no, no time for bullshit. And then I'd like to plant a gentle seed and let it grow. Different ways of doing things. So I think you're going to have a great future no matter what you do. And I guarantee you're going to be on the speaker circuit. You're ridiculous.
Oh yeah, that is on the list. So I kind of have I have a list of things that I would like to do that. So I always wanted to make a pop record. So I did that. Nice. And I still want to do a music video. So if anyone out there does music videos, hit me up, please.
Or if you want to and never have, because that's
yeah, exactly. If anyone wants to do a music video and has never done it, let's make it happen. I wanted to give YouTube a try and see if I could get monetized on YouTube. So I did that. And now I want to renovate a house. So I'm learning those skills. So there's things that I want to do. I definitely at some point I made a joke at some point about, I wrote a Facebook status and I finished it with, "Thank you for coming to my TED Talk." And my dad he asked me, "Where can I get the link to your TED Talk?" And I said, "Daddy, I didn't do a TED Talk." And he was like, "Well, it sounds like something you would do." And I said, "Yeah, I probably will do a TED Talk at some point." So
of course you will.
I have things that I want to do, but I'm not nailed down to one thing because there's so many things that I want to do. I want to do everything. Not everything, but everything that I might possibly be good at.
Well, I think the bucket list is your thing. And like you said, if you're not focused on collecting the possessions and I don't know if you've been following the housing crap in Ottawa, but holy moly.
I am a millennial and I need shelter. So I have been following the housing market is a lot. I have my own thoughts about how things can be improved, maybe need some capital, but I have a lot of ideas, especially because I'm coming from a different perspective. I see right now it's a lot of family houses being rented out, and then people are renting single rooms in family houses instead of purposely built rentals, which I think is the future, because we no longer have this society where you get married at 20, move into a 4-bedroom house, and then have a bunch of kids and a dog and the big yard. Now we have a sea of working professionals that need spaces that work for them. And I have so many ideas about how real estate and rentals and things like that and housing could be improved in the city. I gotta get some capital. I gotta get the piggy bank going, and I'll be doing something in that industry for sure too.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, I have no desire. I want to keep my house. And frankly, you're going to come and renovate there's your content is we had to, I just left it for the longest time. We have 3 teens, and my 2 boys, because of childhood issues and trauma, had a little issues, and a lot of holes poked in the wall. One had like 45 umbrella holes. One had a golf club, and eventually you're just like, I'm just gonna leave it until everyone's done their shit, right?
I'm pretty good at patching some drywall.
Well, excellent. Well, but most of that, the upstairs isn't done, but we did that. We said, okay, everyone's settled and wherever they're going to be settled. I'm pretty sure no one's going to punch a hole in the wall, but maybe mom if she's drinking. Kidding, not violent. We had a flood then last year, and we were like, like that's how we are. Everyone in Canada would hate that. They're just like, you got to fix every ounce of your house. And I'm just like, but I want to go to Kenya. Like, so
everybody has different priorities. And I think that is okay. Obviously, I like my space to be curated.
Yeah, absolutely. You want it to, well, no, but the thing is, and this is where I get on the whole kick about people right now and their freedoms being government control. I'm like, if you live in the suburbs, you're only allowed to have your grass a certain, like, we're already controlled to the like umpteenth degree. It's just, the whole thing just drives me crazy but I understand. I'd love to see the genesis of thought. Like if I ever went and did a master's, that it would be that, or a PhD, because I find it like it's a good cross of like anthropology and sociology and psychology, and I think it's fascinating. But I'm not that into something that I want to spend 4 years researching it, if that makes sense. I just would like to read the Coles Notes version. But there's an interest. So I think the way the world is going, some people can still, like, I have to have a strategy for my business. It is. And I have 1,000 scenario plans because for a while we're just going to throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Right. But as we have evolved, okay, well, I know what I'm good at. I know my price points. I know these things now. Now I can do a strategy to get out. So now I know what I want out of it but when you're doing things out of just interest, or survival, which is where most people are right now. You found a way to do both, like Josh, who knows, maybe he could make something of this beer thing because he's following his interest now. He never has done that, right? We were always the dutiful because we adopted, and then losing our job was not, I'm sorry, we made a commitment to this kids, and, house crappy though it may be, we're going to keep it. But that was our thing. So, but I don't have a plan for my retirement. Like, money wise, we've got possibly some if we make it, but I don't have I'm going to retire and I'm going to go to Florida every year. I just know we want to experience life because we spend so much time working. We spend so much time, we're definitely going to have a money manager help us through that so that we don't go the first year of retirement. Right. I guess we're broke again, which I can see happening. I can totally.
Retirement's over.
It
was a sabbatical.
No, it is. And so I think like if we could take any of the lessons learned is that you sometimes you can start with a plan and that's great. But if you can't start with yourself, like your internal, whether it's interest or capabilities. And so for me, it came to finding that I was actually really smart. And like, when I say really smart, it's like, not me going, I'm so smart, ha, ha, ha. It's the kind of intelligence I have is rare. I'm an ENFP, and I'm a hustler. I'm someone who always wanted to get ahead of where I was. Now I want to get out of, but it's a different thing, but that's where I always was. And when you do a strength finding test, visioning is my strength finding. So Did I envision we were going to be in a pandemic and I'd be in the most profitable business? No. But I will tell you that I envisioned I needed something now to get my family through here, and that I can envision the bigger things. So I envisioned that whatever I do, I want to travel. And now I know that, right? And so that has to be, sacrifices need to be made. Eventually I'll give up Starbucks. It's not happening yet. But eventually that is my goal. I know I'm supposed to protest it for many reasons, but it's so good.
Listen, honestly, you can't, I hear it all the time, people who don't support certain businesses because of reason. And to those people, I support you. I have certain businesses that I won't buy from for my reasons, but I completely understand you got to get stuff somewhere. And if you dig hard enough, almost every single business is going to have something shady going on. And if they don't, they're probably a local business, and you might not be able to afford to buy local all of the time. And so there's no judgment. There's no judgment. When I was like a teenager, I was like, I hate Walmart. Now that I have bills to pay,
where you're like, well, I
hate
need
Walmart.
some cheap toilet paper, right? Yeah. Well, and I think that's it. I mean, I did a talk once on there is no ethics, and what it really is that anywhere you shop, anywhere there's a footprint. There's people, children might have made it. It all comes down to who owns everything, and sometimes you can't get away with it. Now, some people just flaunt that and say there's no point trying. But we know that we make decisions every day in our life that have an impact on someone else negatively, and we still do them. Yeah. And so when anyone comes, is pious about, and I've had people like, you should be using electrical cars, and I said, super, give me $1 million, right? We do what you
an electrical car. Shoot.
Yeah, I would love one. That would be great. But, we, as people want things, I happen to be in the industry that I can say we hate Jeff Bezos. And I hope he's watching, because that would be like, what are you doing watching this? That means we have a little more reach than, the 25 to 100 people on my Facebook. But they've set a precedence of free and now. And so it's finding how we can work with the consumers to value that service. Otherwise, if you're just wanting free and now, you can't complain that it's crappy service because you didn't want to pay for it to start with. Someone has to pay. And unfortunately, small stores feel really, really obliged to say free shipping because they're scared people won't buy.
Right.
But you can't compete at the same level. They're going to come to you for different levels.
You can't. And the access to capital is just so different. Mm-hmm. Where another company, a bigger company, they're moving on such a scale that $1 is nothing to them. Where locally, you just don't have access to the big numbers. So local businesses are going to cost more. Buy local when you can. That's my motto. If I know off the top of my head where I can get something local, I'm going to go there. If I know an equivalent that's local, I'm going to go there. But if I need something and I don't know where to get it, and I need it,
I've been to Walmart, and I mean, I admit that is not lately, but I
work at Walmart. You know, when Target closed in Canada, that was a huge, I think 34,000 people lost their jobs or something like that because they had so many locations. Just so huge job loss. So no matter where it is, it's the system. It's the way that it works is that money has to be moved around, and if you're getting something, someone else is going to be negatively affected, and that's the system. Of course, we would like to change that system, maybe. I can't do it tomorrow. But tomorrow I still have to eat something.
We can't all use like I used to weigh 400 pounds, and I was like, I couldn't even shop secondhand if you asked me to. And I'm like, you're gonna have to have some really good women or kids make my clothing. Like, I'm gonna break it. These boobs alone. But all those jokes aside, that was a fact and a reality of my life, is that I would love to, I prefer to shop secondhand. I like to find cool little finds here and there, things that look good. And I'm obviously not a fashion person. So I don't put as much, but I used to. When I went on stage, I'd always have a nice dress on, full head of makeup, because I just needed to. My self-esteem was so low, I couldn't get on stage without it. And now I can talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere. And I don't even care if they're interested, but I do care, really. That's why we count our likes and our subscriptions. Come on.
We all care a little bit. It's normal to care a little bit. It's okay.
Absolutely. Well, so I think that's where I want to leave, is on our lessons. So if we have to go to the lessons that we've learned, I think from hearing from you is that, use your voice for good, follow your interests, be okay changing where you have to go. Like, don't wallow too much in putting all your
wallow. And if you wallow hard, you know, whatever you need to do to get it out, wallow, mourn, grieve, scream at the wall. But life is going to move forward whether you like it or not.
Well, it is. You and I at the beginning, you talked about job loss of your parents. My dad was 28 years in when they laid him off. I was an adult by that time. And he started when he was 15, and he got out of a gang and he started working, and he had lovely Star Phoenix, a newspaper in Saskatoon, great family atmosphere. Conrad Black came in, bought it. And it wasn't even just that they all got laid off. It was how they got laid off. They were in 3 different rooms. One room was you get to keep your job. One room was reduced money and hours. And one room was all laid off. So my dad took a look around at who else was in the room. He's like, oh shit. Like, he just knew. But that was how they just did things, right? And so now I'm sure they would just do it by email and lock you out. But yeah, so you have to go, but you have to move on. If you stay too stuck in one area or one loss, even, I joke about the athlete thing, but I mean, I used to train 12 hours a day, right? It was a lot of training to be a kayaker of all things, but it was sort of the only identity I had. And so as I've become older, my identity is more than one thing. I am literally the intersectionalism, right? I am who I am. And if anyone says you're not enough of this, I don't care about anymore, because it's who I've learned to become. And so the lessons of all this is just be flexible, be ready, and enjoy yourself along the way. Because
and don't tie your identity to something that can be taken away from you.
I agree. Yeah.
So I'm a digital content creator and now I'm a YouTuber, but I can call myself a YouTuber, but that's not all I am, because at any point, YouTube could lock my account and kick me off. Facebook could lock my account and kick me off. But who am I outside of that? I'm still me, and I have a lot of other interests. So I can't hang myself on, I'm an event planner, and that is my entire identity. That's who I am in this city, because events don't exist anymore.
That's exactly it.
But I'm still me. So how can I be me in another capacity? How can I bring me to this other industry or this other field or this other job?
But here is our problem, is that I don't think people are self-aware as we are. And I don't mean that as an insult. Don't send me a hate mail. But realistically, it takes a lot to know who you are and what your values are.
And it's terrifying. It's hard work to do, and it's terrifying. And I'm still learning. I'm only 26 years old, but I'm throwing myself in it in the hopes that 20 years from now, I can look back and be like, that plucky little kid. I'm glad.
Well, no regrets, right? Like when I was your age, I was just finishing up my university that I was told, I wasn't smart enough to go. And I had all these, like I said, my dream was I'm going to be a parole officer. And still to this day, have never been a parole officer. And in fact, now realize I would have been awful at it. I'm really good at finding certain things and guiding and visioning, but when it comes to and I know this even from parenting, I'm like, why don't you just know better? Like, it's literally, I can read it's how I train people. That's why I'm not even allowed to train people at my own work, because I'm like, I just want it done this way.
You don't have to be good at everything.
Well, that's it. Well, and that's what I've learned. And so sometimes I'm told at work to back off, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go be CEO. What does that mean? Like, I'm going to take up golf and hit on people, but I'm learning as I go too how to be a CEO, but I'm doing it the Jenn Hayward way, just as you're doing it the Anja way. So I want to thank you so much for coming. This is a great conversation.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
I hope people enjoyed it. I find out the compressions and stuff later, because on StreamYard, I can't figure it out. But then I just go back and look.
I've been peeking a little bit on your page.
Okay.
And then I've also been receiving private messages, because my people love to private message me when I'm on air. Oh, look, Anja could become the next Mr. Kate. Oh, that's so cute. Mr. Kate is a very popular YouTuber that does home renovations.
Oh, you see, I didn't even know that. I was like,
I just checked on your Facebook and saw that comment. That was awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Oh my God, most of my people are just like, "Hi, Jen." That's like, look, Bernie people, the moms, the moms who are like, "Look, Bernie's in front of my house," as opposed to all the creative stuff. So, no, I want to thank you, and to subscribers. I'm here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you want to subscribe. And it's this, I just taught, we may bring back our bits that we used to do, but I've been told empirically that we're not bringing back sock puppets anymore as much as I want them. Mr. Saki's dead. So unless we're able to write and put some effort in, because my husband is not an improver and there's a lot of that's pretty much, I'm going to leave actually. I'm going to tell you one little story about Josh.
Okay, awesome. Love it.
Following the path. And it's I think it'll bring the generations together. Way back, 2001, I think, in Regina, they had a heterosexual Pride Day, which is the dumbest thing. It was sanctioned by the mayor. And yeah, right. I mean, that alone. So you got to look this up. The Daily Show actually did a thing on it way back. Bill Watcott was the name. And now they were proud of their heterosexuality. So I was the director of the Women's Center at the time. So it was really my job to go down and see and help protest, I guess. But we went, and this guy was crazy, and this was before Facebook, and so we would argue, like I as the director of the Women's Center and him as a crazy right-wing guy, through letters to the editor. So that's how, like, if you, like, every 4 days people would see all these things, right? And so I went, and it was so pathetic. It was like 17 people, and it was just like, it wasn't worth protesting. It was so I had my friend in from Toronto. She was my, maid of honor or whatever, Shirley. And so she was sitting with me, and my husband was on the other side. And another person who was much more activist oriented came with signs and the whole thing. So the media just jumped on it, and they did a little interview with her, and they wanted more action shots. So my husband's, like, because I was very, like, outspoken, radical when I was younger, I still am, and my husband would, like, hold my hand at places and say, like, please don't make a scene, please don't make a scene. And so, because we didn't have Facebook to make scenes on, so you had to do it in live. And so the guy, he goes out there and he yells out some stats about homosexual teachers molesting your children. And so my husband, the quiet, Joe, starts booing him. And so all the media runs to my husband, and they're like, oh, what do you want to say about this? And he's like, ask my wife. And that was it. So that's like how my husband thinks on his feet from day one. Ask my wife. And the irony of that whole story is my friend's husband at the time called her that night from Toronto and says, hey, sweetie, what were you doing today? And apparently on the national media, it said Jenn Hayward and partner, and then had me and Shirley together as if we were protesting. So if you think about that social media manipulation, it still happened back then. It was
pure confusion. Jeez.
Oh God, yeah, I got 1,000 stories, baby. But anyway, I want to end on that I've learned a lot in my life, and I can't wait, because you don't have to wait to tell all your stories. You tell them as they're happening, and I think that's actually a really beautiful thing.
I think it's going to be really fun. Like, I made a post just yesterday. Yeah. So I recently got monetized on YouTube, and I made a post and I said, you guys, I made 38 cents. And I don't even care that that's 38 cents, because that is money.
It is.
That is money that I pulled out of the internet. That is my own. So
great. You'll make much more, I'm sure of it. So yeah. Any of my friends can go to True Show Girl, but there's, I put somewhere, learning how to do this. It's no, I forgot to put the YouTube one, but go to True Show Girl.
You go to trueshowgirl.com. There's links to everything. So you can find my music there. You can find links to my YouTube, anything that you want. There's a little short bio that I need to work on, but there's a little short bio about me there. So that's the home base. So just go to trueshowgirl.com.
So go to trueshowgirl.com.
Or you can search me on any social media at True Show Girl, and it should pop up as well.
All right. And so that's Anja, and she, needs us old people to support her too, because I think that there's a lot of generational discussions to have. I enjoyed this. I'm going to have you back again another time for sure. And I'm going to put makeup on that time, and we're going to drink wine.
We're going to be glam.
I know. I'm sober right now. And I'm doing keto. So we're lucky I made it out alive and that no one was killed.
It was super fun. It was a great discussion. I'm really happy to have been here. And this is going to be one for the books for sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to talk to you about what am I supposed to do with the video after you see it.
I think we're doing really great. Like, you got our name on the screen. You got the ticker going. I think you're doing really great.
Pretty cool. I paid for the premium, so there you go. I got to stop paying for all these premium stuff, but I like it. Okay, well, you know what? It's 8:30, and anyone who knows me knows that's my edible time, so I'm off.
All right, enjoy.
Do not talk to me after 8. So yes, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you on the Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.